welcome to today's show. We'll see how it goes today. It is Friday. It looks like it's beautiful here in Ovid, Michigan, nice and sunny. And what's always so great about doing the show is that you get to have your voice and to get your side of, how do I want to say it, Jen?
Our side of the puzzle?
The puzzle. I like that. Yeah, there's not. It's our small truth, because the big T truth is out there, and someday we'll all remember it when we will stop fighting. Now, what's happening today is this is Medicine Women Reveal. I'm Brenda Bates, and with me is
Jen Tuffle.
Medicine Woman.
Medicine Woman.
Okay. Doing what we do best is to help you if you are in the chat room and you have questions. Why did I project this? Or why did this crap happen in my world? Or why am I sick? Why? We help you answer the whys, because your soul is the one that's orchestrating the whole thing. You just happen to be the puppet of your soul. And you are also the consciousness. And when you are conscious, which is you're observing the moment, living it, acting it, breathing it, just like the movie Click, just like you are in charge of your movie, of your life. And it's those decisions of how you react are the most important ones and the critical ones about how your life is going to be set for the foundation, how you're going to move forward. We were talking about things last night, in particular, you know, where does all of this information come from? Well, there is what the sacred contract of your soul is. But a lot of times in order to access this life's path, we have to access how you have consciously rearranged to set things up to have happen in your world. And for instance, usually it'll be the time of conception up to the age of 7. And those are the first experiences. How are you going to react? And so your soul is testing you to some degree. And it's not trying to be mean, it's just saying, okay, let's see what happens. And if you react in a negative manner, oh, well, we got to finish working on that. You haven't resolved it, you haven't let it go, you haven't stopped being so human. When I mean human, I mean that you have a physical body. But you also have a mental and emotional body, which is very, very important because it creates who you are. And when you create that part of yourself, you end up learning that you can use this voice as the recorder, the mental self-talk, because you are a thought. And what's important to understand is the emotions is what makes you become more human instead of alien. The emotions can be anywhere from, how do I want to put it, intensity is what you need to understand. There's degrees and levels, and it is different meanings, different perspectives. All of them are correct according to your soul. And it all depends on your group consciousness, whether you're going to play right or wrong, or you're going to realize and wake up that there's nothing wrong. It is just something that I had learned to project, respond to, react to, and here you go as a human being. Now, what I help people do is that it's that reaction. There are unresolved issues. There's unresolved first responses. There has been collective group consciousness from the Inquisition periods. And those periods are what, Jen? When you think about the Inquisition periods.
What a show.
Yeah. History of the World. Yes, I really enjoyed that movie myself. We should watch that again.
Yes. We'd get some new insights. But yeah, it's the idea of just being persecuted for what you believe, for what you think, and then not be, because it wasn't held up to somebody's standard. It was like, and I'm really paraphrasing history right now, but so there was somebody who decided that life was going to be like this.
A pimp. Go
and
ahead.
then the people participating, the population, the citizens, the peasants, everybody that took place had to show up according to this way. They had to pay taxes.
Dream.
They had to serve this way. They had to, provide for the kingdom or whatever. And if you were thinking or believing outside of that, then that's when trouble arose and you started being persecuted. And a lot of what I remember, what really stuck out to me when learning history so long ago, was the idea of proving what you think did you know that I'm having a thought? Well, I'm asking you, do you know I'm having a thought right now?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I
Okay.
usually feel it first, and I'm usually telling her, do you know what you're thinking?
Exactly. Other people who aren't soul coaches who read people's energy.
Hey, I don't mean to. Her crap just gets in my field, and it's like, seriously, take care of that thought.
Hey, here you go. Other people, you know, you have your thoughts, I have my thoughts, and now I'm supposed to be able to prove this is my thought.
That's interesting.
And so, to some degree, that's what stuck out to me as far as the Inquisition is that that's what, along with everything else, really having to prove that.
See, now that's interesting because when you understand the archetypes of what we created this consciousness to be, a pimp is someone that takes and has a dream. And then they get people, which are hoes or victims, that execute and make that dream happen for them. They reap all the benefits, and they make sure the ones that are giving the dream, helping to create it, almost get next to nothing except for the need factor.
Survival.
And survival, yes. Which book is it? The Four Agreements, I believe it is. It could be the other one, I'm not sure. But it's that need. I think it was the pizza story of the woman that couldn't think for herself. She had to think the way everybody else thought. Anyway, she knew she was hungry. She didn't know how to feed herself. And then all of a sudden, this pizza guy comes to the door. Pizza guy! And she answers it. And he goes, "Hey, you look like you're starving." "Yes." "Well, I'll give you this free pizza." And so then she's like, "Oh, wonderful. No strings attached. It looks like it's all about love and compassion." And then you get addicted to it. You think, okay, oh, I like this. This is good. And so then he comes back same time every day. Then it becomes what? The Pavlov or how do you pronounce it?
Pavlovian idea that at this point in time, this person's going to knock. So all of a sudden, I'm hungry.
And so it's about the way we train ourselves. And so then eventually it's like, okay, you know, this pizza isn't free today. I need you to do this, this, and this. Are you willing to? And they're really small. Yeah, I can do that. I really can. Okay, so I'll do that for you and I'll get the pizza. And so then the stakes seem to get higher and higher and higher. And it just reminds me of how when you go to work and they say, okay, I'm not going to give you any more pay, but let's just see how good you are. You're so good at your job. I'm just going to put on 20 more hours a week for you. I know you can do it. You won't let me down. And then the next thing you know, you're desperate to keep your job because you need the money to pay for your family to survive. And so then you're willing to do now the prostitute card, which means you're selling yourself for less. And it has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with, what would you say?
What parts are you willing to cut up and out in order to serve somebody else's needs?
And the thing is that's where we're here to help you heal those particular things in the past and start to balance out those archetypes. And then after a while, the archetype, because we're all born with the prostitute card, and then the other one is the saboteur card. The saboteur is about this, you're going to, okay, I want to do this, but I can't, which means you're going to sabotage yourself. So because, well, whatever story you may want to tell yourself, there's then the excuses and the reasonings that come into play. They seem logical at times, but then there are times that it's not. And they all interplay. Then we have one that is called the victim card. And what's interesting is this victim is worse off than the hoe, than the prostitute. Because this person has no fight. They literally have been beaten down to the core where there's no fight. I mean, no matter how much they try to muster inside, there's no fight. And you have to understand that when you're going to be of certain consciousness groups, one of the things that challenges were meant for was so that you would create a pathway through the caudate nucleus. The caudate nucleus is that part of your brain that governs fear. And the pathway to conquer it, okay, and you're scared crapless, and the only thing that really breaks a fear is anger. And that's that motivation to get you to go, okay, I'll jump over the moat of alligators, I could do it. And then when you do it, you already know that you create a pathway that you can do it again. Well, after so many consciousness of that, got actually tired of, oh my God, I gotta suffer every day? Oh, I don't want to do this anymore. So even if you create a pathway in some instances, you just don't want to suffer. You're done. Okay, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done. I'm done. Leave me alone. And there's just all of these particular things. One of the other archetypes that we all have in common is the child. Now, the child ranges in different kinds, from a wounded child to the eternal child. And what is that? It's about taking the consciousness of growth of, how do I want to put it, knowledge. It is taking that knowledgeable step almost every time. And in order for you to stop knowing life as it is in that direction, you have to be open to another perspective, another way to collapse time, another way to observe. And then when you start to grow from this particular part, then all of a sudden, you move into a student, and then you can move into a teacher, and then you can move into the guru. But at all times, you're growing. And usually the child part of you is that you're stuck in a particular time period where you're very preserved in staying there. When a baby, and I've talked about this many times, a baby, and I can't remember, I think it's Leadership into Self-Deception where the story comes from, whereas this baby starts to crawl backwards. It's so excited. And it crawls backwards, it gets itself caught under the table and chairs. And every time it crawled farther backwards to get out, because it didn't know enough yet to move forward, it didn't have another perspective, it got caught and more was in pain. When that occurred, then what do you think she blamed?
It wasn't herself. It wasn't able to see that, gee, I know that my legs do this. I've been around on the planet long enough to know that these are my body parts. So, gee, and I'm interacting with this. So, yeah, it must be. The baby can't do that. It's kind of like, this thing did it.
And most of the time, what we're doing is we're learning to train ourselves to look outside ourselves. That we have to survive the elements, and it's its fault. And if you listen to how adults talk, again, there's no cutting anybody down. This is an awakening state for you to understand. Is most of the conversations that people have is they'll say, oh, like for instance, I'm sitting in my office today and I hear, and I'm like, there's a pop, and then all of a sudden I hear a coin, ding-a-ling-a-ling, hit the counter, and I'm like, what? All right, so now do I have to be scared? Not really, but what's got my attention? And so then I started to feel around that it was about something is out of balance, and so noises and sounds, and so then because I know how to read life, I came in here and had to fix my computer because the sound wasn't working right. So then I physically decided I'm going to go investigate and put my finger on what physically did it. Now I know spirit can make anything happen, but you can always find a physical experience. So I walk out in the kitchen, I'm looking around going, I see nothing. I have a small kitchen. So I'm walking around, and there we have a container where we dump food to give to the animals or to recycle in the bin, whatever it is we need to do. And it had filled itself with this combustion type thing.
Air.
And guess what happened? Too much gas makes a person explode, right? This container lid went kapoof. And it had hit my tea strainers. And that's what it sounded like a coin because it was on top of the metal stove. And I thought, seriously? Wow. All right, I'll put the lid back on. And I walked away. But they created something, who's they? Well, it's my spirit guides. It is working with the angels. It's working with the other side. It's working with the other dimensions. It's working with the mirror. And so the law of attraction just allows things to happen, and if you learn how to communicate and work with it and listen to your soul, then you end up removing some of the fears. So where we were going with this is that looking at a physical thing as a way of saying, I always can find a physical problem. Most of the people are blaming the food on this planet, the chemistry of how they're modifying it, putting poisons on the food. Yes, I agree to some extent, but I'm going to tell you something. It is all a frequency. Everything is a frequency. And if you listen to the soul, nothing can harm anything except for it's your believability factor. It is the way you know it, and it's the way you were trained to understand it. Now, what it is a limitation. When there's a limitation, then you have to understand, are you going to become a victim to it? The food that comes in my house, by changing the vibration of it, they have all kinds of vibration tools. Just grab one of those things. Yeah.
This thing.
You know, Hannah Kruger said, okay, well, there's stuff and dangers in food all the time. So she has what's called
The Soma.
the Soma board, and it's an energizes your food with a Soma board. And it somehow changes the vibration so that you can get the wholeness from the food. There was another one, a pica board, that had to do with scanners and things. But praying over your food, changing the vibration, how can I prove it? I can't. But I can tell you when I muscle test whether that food is good for me or not good for me. You know, if it depends on how you ask that question, it's very important to understand how you ask that question. Is this good for me? Well, in my mind, a tomato is good for me. But if it has something on it and I don't upgrade, you know, I'm going to say, yeah, it's good for me. So I'll eat it, and chances are it's good.
Because tomatoes are acidic, maybe the acid is going to interact with whatever's going on with your chemistry that day. Ordinarily, a tomato is good. It's fresh. It comes from the garden. Those are garden fresh tomatoes. But there may be some kind of chemical frequency that's going on.
But regardless, it is how your thoughts will determine whether or not you're going to have an issue with a particular food. I don't care what's in it, you will have that particular issue, okay? Pray over your food. There's, and I'll talk about water in a minute, so we're going to take a quick little break and we'll be right back. Well, like I said, we're going to talk about water. We are pretty much made of water. Every part of us, our brain, our muscles, everything inside is pretty much water. And water, now some people argue, well, I'm not here to argue, I just know that when we start making known the unknown, and it depends on your believability factor that's within you, you will line up to the dimensional shift or where you need to be. So this book, Jen, want to say the name of it?
Masaru Emoto.
Okay, and?
The author of Hidden Messages of Water. Love Thyself. The Message from Water. So he's got several books, it looks like.
So what do you remember about this book?
So what his experiment was, and like you said, you're not there to argue about the science, and people can believe whatever they want to believe, but the basic idea is that these water crystals, what he did was, when you say positive messages over water, specifically the two words together are love and gratitude. It's not just love by itself, and it's not gratitude by itself, but it's love and gratitude together that will change the crystalline compound of the water. And so what he did was take, however he did it with the frozen water of those, but then he also had negative messages like hate, or he had Hitler, or whatever else. And so then you could see that the negative message, I can't find the negative message in here real quick.
They're so hard to find sometimes.
But because they're just so beautiful, but they're just so distorted, and they're not held together beautifully like this water compound is. And the idea is that we are made up of a certain percentage of water. And again, you can go through the science and figure out, you know, they'd like to say that you're just 70% water, which is a basic number, somewhere between 50 and 70, and it depends on your age, it depends on your health and all that, and your gender and all that kind of stuff. But the basic idea is that we're made up of water. So if these messages affect water itself this way, what if we're made up of water? And so how is that affecting us and our chemistry and our whatever you want to call it, chemical compounds?
Yeah, and the reason that's important to understand is that, you know, you watch What the Bleep Do You Know, and the thing is that if words, messages, vibration of these words and intention can change the water molecule to be together and beautiful, or be destroyed and separated, imagine what it can do to you, because we are water. Darren Westman, what I like about him is that he wrote a book called Infinite Love and Gratitude. And he uses the symbol of his hands, infinite love and gratitude, and he actually has come up with a healing system with infinite love and gratitude, asking the body, pointing to it, muscle testing, doing certain things, and changing in helping the body. Infinite love and gratitude, infinite love and gratitude, infinite love and gratitude. He says usually 3 times. And what happens is that he went and then took the blood. He took the blood beforehand and then did the infinite love and gratitude healing with a particular person. Retook the blood, and it actually changed the blood chemicals to become more positive, happy, to become more innate ability to, it's like a switch to some degree that said, oh, wait a minute, that's right, I can, you know, because he went and designated a specific area of question and concern and issue that needed to be resolved, and just applying infinite love and gratitude and how he's healing tool is set up is basically very important. And it changed the molecular structure of the blood, which caused that person to become start becoming healthier. So your innate ability gets to be turned on. It already has the original blueprint. Usually the question is why doesn't it? And that's what's important to ask, and that's the important to look for. It's not always going to be a physical thing that you put your finger on and just blame, 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 blame. One of the things that we have to get out of this consciousness is to sit there and blame. Like I was telling you, we started to talk about last night something very specific about relationships and how our attitudes or our foundation helps create who we are now. Now some people say, well, forget about it. All right, you build a house, put an attic on it, and there's no foundation, there's no walls. How is that attic going to stay up? Without realizing it, you have to have your past to some degree to create who you are. And they say, oh, okay, yeah, you can have all this pain so you can become a stronger person. That's good, but where's the self-esteem? Where's the joy and the happiness? That part usually gets left out. And it's like you have to be proud of the fact you're a fighter. Well, why do you need to be a fighter? I learned that suffering can be an option. You have to just go back and change. So last night we were talking about how we could easily sit there as being in our human mindset just to go and blame our parents because they were the ones that raised us. But again, that's the baby point saying, it's the table's fault. Because we as a soulful people choose to be interaction with other souls. Okay, so we learn to create moments in time that occur. And we needed certain people that are going to help us. And so, of course, you have to come born into a particular state, usually with the mom and dad, because that's the group consciousness of this particular era. With that in mind, you said, okay, I need to be not help processing what's going on or protected. And most generally, it's going to come from your parents or your guardians or whoever it is that where it started from. But do we want you to blame them? No.
Right, you had those experiences, and now it's time to unravel those experiences.
Because it boils down to the signature, the vibration. That is how they are what do you want to call it? Projected to be for you. I have watched a particular frequency that has followed me ever since I came on this planet. And as I look and go, oh my gosh, it's there in my childhood, it's there in my teenage years, it's there when my young, being a young woman, and then it was there. Do I have that signature now that follows me around? Actually, no. It'll come up very rarely, and that is because I chose to take a conscious, active part with myself and resolve it, creating closure to attracting that particular signature. The attraction factor is in you of why you're attracting in your life the way it is. And it's not about blame, it's about looking at how it was constructed. So this person or vibration that makes people show up that way is that the intensity within me that is less than happy, okay? Less than joy. And so when these people appear, they make me angry or frustrated or fearful. It's that signature, a particular, she had somebody over one day, and the next thing you know, I am making chemical peptides to be a certain behavior, which is usually not me. And what do you remember about that day?
I'm not sure. Oh, so it was very, because you also got sick, also anticipating that person was going to come over
without
to visit.
consciously knowing but my body goes, oh my God, that signature, I know it. So it's going back based on how I've already have a pathway with the signature, not consciously going, oh my God, I hate this person, or I don't like that signature. It's not that at all.
You were anticipating
My cells
because
were.
your cells were, because everything is frequency. It's that vibration. And so if it's going to be coming in almost like an ocean, you know, the tidal system of the ocean, it's coming in, and you can start to anticipate it. And if your cells on that subatomic level know that that vibration is going to start interacting, oh boy, I gotta.
That was my hand cream.
That's awesome. Love it. So then you're anticipating it, and then it's like, oh crap, now I've got to react a certain way. And it's interesting because with this particular, it's kind of like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood around here, you know, who's going to stop by today. That'd be funny if the doorbell rang just then. But you were anticipating, and it's almost like you had to become something else because of how this person and I were going to interact, and they had certain expectations of you, and who Brenda is, and who Jen is, and who we are together as friends and roommates.
Well,
so
what was interesting is, again, this all on a different level was happening, not consciously, but it was happening as this consciousness is being created. And as I'm living this movie, there part of me is like, all right, I have woken up to realize, do I have to show up this way to these people? Do I get a choice? And there are times that I do and there's times that I don't, because if I don't, that means I need to step in and say, what is it that this signature, why do I go in this automatic responsive behavior, where's the intensity, and then I have to go and decide, do I want to just bitch about it or do I want to resolve it? Now, I'm also a very resolution-oriented person, so I kept taking, and because I couldn't heal it in the moment, okay, fine. So I learned to keep putting it on the shelf, particular
instances.
Yes.
And this person is also wanting to control their environment and have things a certain way.
Yep, everything's got to be
and
just right.
And yeah, even if we were gonna do what we do, it's kind of like, well, I want this outcome. So
Yes, they want this outcome. Now here's the funny part. If you've never been in a rhythm or been in their particular routine and you're the outsider, guess what? You're the problem. And no matter how much, I know usually I'm on time, I'm going to get things done, I'm quick on the draw, I do this, I do that.
you go with the flow, and it's like you can I watch how spirit is just like ding, 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 everything's done.
Yeah, and then, but that day or two.
Oh, I can't tie my shoelaces. Oh, I don't know where my wallet is.
And everybody
where's my phone?
Oh my gosh, it was seriously, it was like it was almost expected of me that I'm going to be the one that has to screw up for them so that this person can carry on a specific bitchiness that day to say, this is the way my world functions. See, there's another person. So I had to become the signature for this person. I didn't like it. I was trying to fight it, but okay, fine. I'll just learn about what I need to do, and I will go.
Thank you for all these great clues, because this is going to be a deep and amazing healing.
Yes, and there's no way I'm going to waste it. Now, somebody says, oh, you don't want to waste it, you mean the healing. Yeah, we're going to do both. When you get a healing, no, I don't want you to waste it. I want you to glorify it so that you can train your brain that good things can occur, so that your pathway can be stronger and that can override and supersede, and joy can be in place of all the fear. But when you have a crappy fresh experience, which means it just happened, and it's so fresh in the mind because your self-talk starts to get very obsessed about it, and the emotion is like, oh, hell no. You can just become very angry, then we say don't waste it. And what do I mean by that, Jen?
Well, okay, so let's say, for example, that I'm really interested also in creating resolution in my life. Like, you know what, I'm tired of this shit happening to me. Okay, well, guess what? This experience just happened. Oh, this experience just happened? Did you know that you're working on X, Y, and Z, and that this situation happened because of a result of this, that, and the others to show you what you need to work on. Oh, yeah, maybe I should take a look at it now, because if I don't take a look at it now and pay attention, like, hey, hello, you said you wanted to heal, and then now it's like, well, then there it goes. Well, guess what might happen next time? It may just be a little bit stronger because you didn't get it the other time, and now it's really got to force you in your world, and it's like, oh, crap.
It'll be worse than the first, and it goes from a whisper to a bitch slap. And I have watched people say they get and they understood what she just said, but then all of a sudden life will happen to you in that instance, and it's amazing how this knowledge, it didn't exist.
Gone.
Because you're like, oh my God, why does my hands hurt? Why did this just happen? I just had my car stolen. It's gotta be, oh my God, it's them, it's this. Oh, it always happens to me.
Oh my gosh, we're in the end times. We're facing the apocalypse. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket.
And I'm glad she said that, because life as you know it is over, because you're telling your soul. Your soul's telling you. You remember how you wrote and been in this particular situation and you know it this way? Yes, we recreated it for you so that you can take the intensity off, so that you can stop knowing it and keep writing your story to be this way always. So you are getting another chance. And I always say preserve all the positive learnings, because then that means that this particular lesson that you're doing, you get to heal it, be done with it. You don't have to keep creating the hell. And most of the time, what you're doing as adults is you're learning to unlearn a particular lesson. Why? Because you have learned to create limitations with your learnings. Literally, there'll be a lesson. Don't put your hand in the fire. That's great. That's very sensible thinking. But when you have trained yourself that this thing is bad and it can hurt, then you go apply it to a person that carries a certain signature, you're not going to allow yourself to conquer, to achieve, to move forward, because you're like, oh my God, I better not stick my hand back in the fire. Which is good and bad. I had a situation where this signature had followed me all through my life, and she showed up as a woman this time, and she was tormenting me just because she could, because of that signature. And I'm like, seriously? Again? Seriously?
What's that phrase, being mean for sport?
Yeah, they did. They were doing it for sport, because every day they lived and breathed, and I was their world. And I'm like, well, that's nice, but damn it, not in this way. So as I'm watching how this is being tormented, and I'm like, okay, the intensity of this. So I did a lot of healing tools on this particular relationship. I tried to be nice. I did the right thing. I realized why I created her. And after I did all this healing, my mother-in-law says, well, after a while you learn that you just don't stick your hand back in the fire. And I thought that was the most interesting comment. And literally, I didn't have to be friends with her. I says to my mother-in-law, you know what? The next time I see this happen, I will be speaking up, and I love you, but I will tell you when I will not tolerate a person, and not because I have to, I have to do it because I'm a good person. No, I don't have to. So I healed the intensity off this woman, that the signature came off her. Is she still the nasty person? Yeah. But guess what? I don't attract her in my world anymore. I don't need to. And because of that, I have now unlearned that this person can hurt me. Literally, I don't have to put my hand back in the fire. I don't have to be friends with her. I don't have to have her as my frenemy. I don't have to have any of that. And it was so cool to see her in the store and notice I had nothing. There was nothing. I wanted to laugh because there was no fear. There was no more of that trained response, that learned lesson that if I am in her presence, she gets to control me. I had healed all that entanglement cords, all the emotional intensity, that there is no way that she can grab on. Literally, she can make a mess all she wants, but I don't have those triggers to respond. It is different than ignoring. It's different than just getting over it. You are literally healing those particular frequencies down to zero and the color to white, and you're changing your left brain and your right brain so that your frontal lobe will create a different reality without that signature in it. which causes you to feel free. You get to create something different. We're going to take a break. We'll be back after this. Well, okay, so what were we talking about? Did we finish that? Is there anything else you want to
Putting
learn?
our hand in the fire and understanding how certain signatures interact in our world.
And signatures are, like for instance,
Not
archetypes.
just how I sign my name.
Correct. Archetypes are templates of certain actions, behavior, and whatnot. And they, even Caroline Miss has what they call archetypes. And anyway, she has archetype cards, and she has it in her sacred contract books and all of the stuff. She's done a lot of studying on archetypes, just like with Carl Jung. Now, for signatures, I recognize certain signatures as certain action of certain behaviors. And we probably could fit them in the archetype. Like the one that really got to me, what would you say it? Kind of,
it's controlling, but the person has no concept that they are controlling. It's absolutely fascinating. And so the idea of what also is what's happening with the signature is that the energy that's in your aura, the energy that's around you, you may have no conscious contact with it whatsoever. And so when some people say, hey, you're putting off a certain vibe, you're sort of going, what the hell, I'm one of the nicest people in the world.
right.
It's almost like, and I don't know if this is a good analogy, but Pigpen from the Peanuts gang, you knew that Pigpen was coming around because of all that little blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
you know, dust and dirt and everything that was going around. And he had no idea. He's like, hey, why do you guys play with me? Come on, I'm fun. And they're like, it's Pigpen, you know? And so to some degree, you have an energy like that. And I'm not saying it's gross and disgusting like Pigpen, but you have energy around you that you may not even have any idea, but it's also remnants. Like I carried off a certain F-off vibe from when I was younger for protection. I needed that for protection. And there are remnants of that
Carry
still,
over in the rest of her life.
right, and that is not my intention of who I want to be today. That's not I don't need it anymore. I'm figuring out and creating resolution to whatever felt threatening to me so that I don't even need to have that as my protection device anymore. But that energy, that air is still there and people interact with it, and it may be triggered by certain social situations or you know, when I go out dancing with people or whatever, that I'm, you know, there's going to be all these people and maybe I feel like on some level I do need protection. And then I wonder, hey, why aren't people coming up and talking to me? Well, that air is still there.
For me, it was the silver platter people. It was the energy signature, how do I put it, is my father. Which is, there is that they love you. With family, it's they love you, okay? And then all of a sudden,
They just may have a screwed up way of how to show
well,
it.
they're showing great love at first, and then because of whatever else is going on in their space, can turn and flip a switch and become very violent. Well, as a child, I've kind of like marked it.
Well,
Okay.
I don't want that to happen again.
Correct. Which means it needs to be resolved. And once I preserve all the positive learnings, the takeaway, which is the positive lessons that are in that, the takeaway, that the reason why I created this was because I needed to learn certain things. But when we preserve it and we take it away, then all of the repeated suffering and hells do not need to repeat themselves. It'll actually, that dross will fall away. And without realizing it, I had gone out into the world, and every time I would exert and to insert myself in certain social situations, usually with boys, you know, there'll be a bunch of girls and the boys, or you have to in a gym class, or you're paired up, and I go to speak, then for some reason my attraction factor would bring a boy that would be mean to me in some form. And so after a while, it just was, I want to be loved, but oh hell no, I ain't doing this again. And so there was a conflict within me, which then, one that protected me the most was the one that was going to be in charge. So every time I go to a place, a hangout, a bar, a dance place, men would kind of look at me as disgusting because that's the lens that I created as a kid out of all the things that, because I was talking, I can't remember what grade it was in, and it was the boy behind me, and then my friend, which was a girl, and so he always wants to talk to her, and she always wants to talk to him, and I was getting tired of being in the middle. And so then one day, I just figured I'll just join in as they're trying to talk on my shoulders. Oh yeah, you know, just, you know how people just kind of the extroverts can just blend in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, not me. As soon as I started to blend in, he says, "What the hell are you doing?" and smacked me right across the face as hard as he could, as if to say, "Learn your lesson, butt out." And all I can tell you is that part of my body was going, "Oh, see, as I'm doing my best to fit in, I'm just going to be beaten every time." So this becomes a particular pattern and a signature that happens to follow. So as an adult, I would go out and I would have to wait until somebody would approach me. That just happened to be something that I learned, because I learned as a kid, if I were to approach, I'm going to get in trouble. It's like a little kid come up to the table, "Mama, Daddy, whatever." "Oh, no, shut up, be quiet, get away. Why always interrupting, blah, 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 whatever. Daddy's in a bad mood, get away." So I learned not to approach people. So literally in bars, people probably see me as a cold bitch, or somebody that's ugly, or somebody that, oh, she's not open to receiving. You know, I'm putting off this air that I'm better than anybody. Who knows? Why? Because it's their way now that they're perceiving me. But my shield is up saying, holy crap, I don't want to have to go through this again where people are just going to be mean to me just because. I want to be approachable, but I also don't want to be in that particular situation ever again as a kid, so I marked it. Did I explain it all right or not?
I think so. So you don't want to repeat it. So you have because something happened in your childhood and said, "Oh, this is what's going to happen." Then it played out with other people. That's how they're going to show up, because that's how you anticipate. That's how you understand that it's going to happen.
Now, why? Because in my brain, the frontal lobe is where reality is created. So I'm going to make what they call little magic trees. You know, you're going to have the thought, and then you're going to have all of the, the branches that have to do with that thought, but it's how you're going to end up recreating reality instead of being acute where it can get pruned away, but it's where it's a chronic where you're constantly repeating. This is part of the attracting factor. So
right, so you've created that magnet to some degree from your brain.
mm-hmm.
You know, there's all the brain science about that, but you've got this magnet, like, oh, this is what's going to happen, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's that one. Okay, there, smack. Okay.
Now, if I was looking for it, I can guarantee I'll find it quickly. There's one, there's one, there's one. Because I have that frontal lobe that says not only do I have to protect myself, and this is how I create my reality, but I have to now have proof that I'm right, so I can keep recreating that same story.
Well, so that you have reality that makes sense.
Yes.
Because that's how you understand it, because it was so part of your environment and what you learned and how life happened, that just is, and so now, so then you fast forward, you get to the point where now it's not just that happening in high school, but, you know, dating and out in other social situations, and now we're in this part of our life where now there's healing tools where we understand that there are ways to just pull out those weeds that we've created in our life and create that resolution. And again, it's not just, oh, think nice thoughts, and oh, everything's going to be better, and oh yeah, you know,
mm-hmm.
in college my phrase was suck it up and move on. Suck it up, suck it up, that's just how life is, suck it up, you know, and then it really sucks when your mom says that to you. Oh, well, you know what you always say, suck it up. Oh, okay, thanks.
Well, here's the thing. Think about kindergarten. We have a 2-year program for kindergarten. You start at 5, and sometimes you may not. You may have to repeat the thing, not because you failed, but what they're measuring against is whether or not you're social enough or you're intellectual enough. It just depends on the
If you've reached
phase,
certain
milestones, and it doesn't mean anything whether you're stupid or anything. It's just like when I was weaning my children, I weaned them not based on my rule, but based on my child. Was a child ready? Was a child, you know, does it need more pacifying? What does it need? And so my kids were all trained, potty trained, weaned, based on the fact when they were ready. But when you go to kindergarten, they look for that social development. They look for that intellectual. And before, when I was growing up, all they did was look for the intellectual development, which was simply, can you draw a body with a neck? Okay, good, you passed that. Can you say your ABCs? Oh, okay, they're grasping the idea that they're ready to say their ABCs and kind of get it, ready for the learning. But we, as people, measure and say, oh my God, they're just seeing my kid's stupid. We really got to change that consciousness. Now, I know, see, I graduated at 17. I know that if I waited one more year, then I think that I would have probably been more socially developed, and maybe not, because of the fact that I had such social interactions never got developed as part of that arrested development. What do I mean by arrested development, Jen?
So, for whatever reason, things, whatever skill, whatever need, whatever ability that needed to develop, be nurtured and fostered, and make sure that you're able to do it, for whatever reason gets cut out.
Like my emotional, people say, oh, you can't emotionally, you've been emotionally stunted, you can't let in love. Here's an interesting part. The asthma or the lung issue. Like, I helped people with cancer, issues all over the place, migraines, and they don't have them ever again. But for me, it's like, what the hell? Now, I've decided I'm using me as a learning tool, because when I was younger, you know, you just look outside yourself as the learning tool. And when I gave birth,